Hi, and welcome to my channel. I'm a Central Texas gardener in Zone 8B, and in today's video, I'm looking forward to sharing with you my early spring April garden tour. Make sure you stay all the way through the end where I share this free resource that can really help with local plant selection. All right, I'm gonna walk you guys down off this side of the patio, and this area I just recently extended by about 230 square feet, and I had a strip of grass that sort of separated this bed from this bed, and so I removed that strip of grass and just connected the two beds, but then I was left with this pile of mulch that I didn't want to necessarily step over, so I put these flagstone here, and that's seemed to do pretty well. Coming along this way, I've got this pyramidal boxwood and sunshine ligustrum. These are pretty mature. They've been here for a few years, but you know, these mostly stay evergreen. They can kind of defoliate in the winter somewhat, or in the heat of summer. Sometimes they'll turn a little bit brown, but I normally don't have to water these much at all. I do have a soaker hose that I just attach my water hose to if it's really hot and they need a bit of a drink, maybe a couple of times throughout the summer. But they've really performed well, and for that reason I've put them on repeat here. So I have 3 more sunshine ligustrum. In front of those I have got these, I think this is Indigo spires, salvia, and they're just now starting to flower, but I just put these in last month. And then I wanted to come back here and talk about this. This is cedar sage, and this has nothing to do, it's not a cedar plant or anything, but they grow underneath cedar trees because they require, or they prefer, a partial shade environment, but they don't like a lot of leaf litter. So like junipers and cedars don't really have a lot of needles that fall down or things like that. So I have them in front of my junipers. I think these really look their best in the spring. In the summer they look pretty rough, but they are so vibrant. And then coming along behind them here, sorry for that sun glare, I have got some poppies, and they just started flowering, and this is my first year with poppies, and these are have germinated from my friend Jean's seeds that she gave me. And so I laid these down in the fall, and they did germinate and came up, and then we had a couple of those pretty cold nights in the teens, and I did get a lot of dieback, but plenty survived, and they're just now starting to flower. You can kind of see all those buds here getting ready to pop up. All right, I wanted to come along here and give you some progress on the redbuds. And so, you know, if you watched my pruning video, you know I did some pretty vigorous pruning in that central portion of this Texas redbud, but you can see the foliage is that beautiful bright green, and it tends to have a denser and more upright and compact canopy versus this forest pansy. Now, the forest pansy has this deep burgundy foliage in the spring, but I have noticed, I think as it heats up, it gets a lot greener. And if you look at this canopy, it's more sprawling. And so honestly, sometimes I'm just trying not to constantly run into these branches. You see how far that's kind of sticking out here? So I just kind of wanted to update you on what those look like currently. All right, coming along this other side, I have a Texas kidneywood here. And these have a really beautiful flower that looks a lot like sweet almond verbena. And they smell really good too. I think these are kind of like a tall shrub to small tree, getting about 15 feet in height. Double check me on that. They are deciduous. And so I've got a couple of these in my yard. I've got this big empty space here because this was full of gomphrena last year, and I'm hoping, you know, I kind of just sprinkled all those seed heads on that bare soil. I'm hoping that here with enough warmth and moisture that they will begin to germinate. So we will see. Coming along here, I have a bunch of larkspur, and this larkspur, these white and pink flowers here, these are from my friend Yvette, and she gave me a bunch of seeds from her larkspur, and they have just been such a joy to me in my garden. Thanks, Yvette. And so every time I look at these, I think of you. And these are visited almost every night by a hummingbird moth or two, and they really look very beautiful into probably early summer when they start to just go to seed, and then I'll remove the seed pods, and I'm hoping to be able to sprinkle them over in this area where I don't have any, but they do very, very well. Here I've got a rock rose, and it's just now starting to flower. The flowers only last about a day, so but you can kind of see that beautiful pink color, and then you can kind of see a little flower, little sweet little flower bud there it'll probably open up tomorrow. And very, very beautiful plant, and it gets very big. So, you know, as you can see, there's not a ton of room over here, so we will see how that goes. Kind of mixed in with this larkspur are purple coneflowers. I have two of them. I've got one here, and then I've got one here, and they have pretty much tripled in height compared to last year. And so I guess they've just really gotten pretty well established. They haven't quite flowered yet, but they're looking really good. So I'm excited, and I hope they put on a really nice show. Coming down here, I have a Texas lantana that I pruned back in last month. And you can see, I mean, it's starting to put on a few, I think, little flower buds and things. So, and then coming along here, I've got several autumn sages, and I pruned those back pretty heavily, and they are definitely much denser and less leggy. The front here, I have got this pink skullcap. I've got one there, another one there, and then one there, and here I have got yarrow, and it's kind of gotten flat and started spreading a little bit. It's kind of different. It is does spread by rhizomes, so you know that means it can be very aggressive in its growth habit. So if that's something you do not like, this is probably not the plant for you. Though I will say I don't see like sprigs coming out over here pretty far from the plant. They usually stay pretty close to the periphery of the plant, and then you can kind of pull them up and hopefully keep it in bounds. But this was green all through the winter as well, and the butterflies and the bees and things like that are always out here on this. Coming along here, I have a rue plant, and this is a host plant for swallowtails, and I have a couple of swallowtail caterpillars here. Can you kind of see them in there? So there's one right there, and then there's another, sorry, my phone's not focusing very well. But this plant is a host plant for those swallowtails, and so sometimes the plant will kind of get decimated by those swallowtail caterpillars, but that's okay with me. This pretty much stayed green for me throughout the winter. I think this gets about 2 by 3 feet in height and spread. So along the edge of this bed is this small ornamental tree called a goldenball lead tree, and this is a Texas native to the Edwards Plateau region, and it's known for these beautiful yellow blossoms. I don't know, they're just so cool. They're like a puffball, and when this is kind of just covered full of all those little puffballs. They haven't quite, yellowed up yet, but when it does, it just looks unreal, like something out of a Dr. Seuss movie. But really, really cool plant. One of my favorite things in my garden. All right, coming along this way, I've just got a small vegetable garden there, not doing a whole lot. I've just got some tomatoes and I think a few cucumbers that have come up, and a big old parsley plant and some chives. But here I have got a few things. I've got an autumn sage, another rock rose, and then here I've got some wine cups. Now this wine cup is a Texas native, and it's actually a perennial, and it's often used as a ground cover. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, this seems really tall for a ground cover, and it is. It's currently about 3 to 4 feet in height, but through the winter it was just maybe about 6 inches tall. These are very, very drought tolerant plants, and they'll take a sun to part shade setting, and I have mine in a part shade setting. Sometimes they can be susceptible to rust, and I have some on this plant. We've had a pretty dry spring, but we did have a bit of rain, and I think because I do have it in a part shade setting, maybe that's why it's happened. Doesn't seem to have slowed down the plant at all. So I wanted to show you this tree, and I don't often talk about it on my videos. This is a Nellie R Stevens holly. And if you have a holly, you may be noticing, it's currently spring at the recording of this video, that you may have some leaf yellowing or brown leaves and leaf drop. And that's pretty typical this time of year because it's making room for all of these new leaves. So if it's springtime and your holly is doing something similar, do not be alarmed. Now, this does have flowers. They're nothing spectacular, but you can see the bees say otherwise. This is always covered in bees when it's flowering. And so I like this plant for that reason. And then also the flowers turn into these little berries here. You can kind of see there's a green one there. But that will turn red as the season progresses. So now the Nellie R Stevens holly has a pyramidal growth habit. It's typically a lot more dense in foliage than you see here, but I pruned mine pretty heavily a few years back, and then I had a roof replaced, and it just kind of damaged a lot of my foundation plantings, and so that's why this kind of looks the way it does. Underneath it here, I have something called woolly stemodia, and this is commonly used as a ground cover, very drought tolerant plant. And that's one of the reasons I've stuck it out here, because I can't bring water out to this spot very easily. But it does have these little flowers. I mean, they're nothing showy, but very drought tolerant, beautiful, kind of that silvery gray foliage. And I'm hoping that it'll kind of cover this area so I won't have to mulch as much. So we'll see how that goes. Here I've got a dwarf yaupon holly, and I have another one, and they look a little worse for the wear. You can kind of see it's kind of missing some branches and things. I just had transplanted this last spring or fall, and it didn't really take very well, but it's alive, so I'm going to let it go. Coming along here, you see I've got a few blue bonnets, and then I have some that have decided to germinate late, and these really won't make it. They really do need that winter to establish their roots, so they should look like this in the fall and then look like this as they're more established, so that you get this in April and May, but that's okay. I will probably overseed this area again in the fall, and maybe I'll get an even bigger stand. Here, this doesn't look like much. I've got a couple of them, but these are gomphrena, and I'm going to tell you, do yourself a favor, go get you some gomphrena seed packs and lay them down in a nice, sunny, hot area, because those gomphrena will show up for you when everything else is really struggling in July and August. They're a beautiful, beautiful annual with a kind of a globe-like flower, and they come in many different colors. They're beautiful as cut flowers. They're kind of like a zinnia, just really don't seem to mind the heat at all. Coming along here, I have a couple of, it's like a flame acanthus. They're not flowering yet. They're just kind of waking up. And I did prune my Texas sage back quite a bit. It was pretty rough looking, so I just cut it down, and it's filling in nicely. These are Dianella, and they're starting to wake up, and they are doing a thing that I'm not used to. I think they're kind of flowering, and so this is not something I've seen them do before, but I'm assuming that's a good sign. Coming along here, I have some red autumn sage, and you can kind of see that I really like some autumn sage, and these were pruned back pretty heavily, and they're just now starting to put on some flowers. In front of them, I have Blackfoot Daisy, and once these get going, they're just such a cheerful plant to have like on the border of your flower beds. And I have more on this side. And at the end of April last year, these Blackfoot daisies were so full, they were like trailing over the sidewalk. It was really pretty. And I don't know if they'll put on that kind of a show again this year, but we'll see. Here I have a rock pentstemon, and this has remained green throughout the winter. They usually have these red tubular flowers. They do really well, I hear, in like a rock garden as well, I guess hence the name. But this is just, you know, sometimes this doesn't look great. It kind of looks real scraggly, but it's early spring, and I did prune it, and so it's looking nice and dense right now. And then on the other side here, I have a new plant that I got at the Master Gardener plant sale, and I'm not going to probably pronounce this correct. I think it's like, I'm probably putting my German lineage to shame here. Nurembergia starry eyes, but very pretty so far. We'll see how it tolerates the summer, but kind of cool. All right, coming along here, I have got more Blackfoot daisies, and they're pretty happy in this spot. I will say these do need very good drainage to thrive, and so I've had to amend my clay soil pretty heavily to help facilitate that. I kind of have these sort of on a slope so that they're not sitting in water. These blue powder yucca are putting out like little pups, I think that's what you call these, along their base, and so this is a really beautiful yucca that has that beautiful blue silvery coloring to it, and they stay under 3 feet, more like 2 feet, and they're kind of a clumping yucca. And so if this kind of puts out a bunch of pups and fills in, that'd be really nice. This one is doing the same thing, but it is also flowering, and so I wasn't sure if these would flower. This is their first year, their first spring in the ground, but they are, and so that'll be neat to see those flowers and what they look like. Coming along here, I have several of these red yucca, and I think I have 3 of them, and I think 2 of them are flowering. And then here I have a Wright's skullcap, and you can see it's covered with all this dusty stuff, and that's diatomaceous earth. I've got a bit of a pest problem here. I've got that shiny flea beetle, and I think the shiny flea beetle larvae are really tearing up some of these other ones. This one doesn't look that bad, but let me take you to one there. Can you guys see all those little orange things right on the plant? Right, they're just probably eating that diatomaceous earth like, haha, it's not doing anything. So I'll probably just spray these down with a water hose and maybe clear out some of that leaf litter at their base, let the plant dry out, and then I might try a little bit more diatomaceous earth. I don't know, we'll see. So far the plant's, you know, it's still alive, it's looking okay, but then I had one completely you know, I mean, it looks really rough. This is all that's left. And so I kind of want to get ahead of it. If you have any recommendations, let me know. I wanted to give a shout out to Texas Tropics, which, you know, they also have a YouTube channel here, and they are based in Houston, and do all sorts of tropical plants. So if that is an interest you have, check them out. And so I was thinking, I mean, this looks pretty dead, right? Look at all those like dead leaves or fronds. I don't know what those are called. I mean, I have this, but I was like, this is a goner. This is what it should look like, and this is what it looks like. But Texas Tropics said, hey, wait, something may emerge still from that plant base. And they're right. Look at that. I've got something here. So I think we're going to make it. So, and then here's another blue powder yucca that is flowering. All right, coming along here, you can see this salvia that I had just put in, and it is starting to flower, and those are so pretty. I think these get about 3 to 4 feet in height and spread, and I do have 3 of them here, and so they seem to be doing pretty well so far. I primarily have these red autumn sage because they stay under 3 feet and are evergreen and flower, and so you kind of get a little bit of everything with these very drought tolerant plants. And then I have more of that dwarf yaupon holly, and then the Mexican feathergrass in the front. And then here are the bluebonnets. And so this is probably the best stand I've ever had, and that looks really nice. But then let's go to this side, and I think I've shared this with you guys last video. I did exactly the same thing, and I only had a little bit. So sometimes you kind of luck out and sometimes you don't. So if you've done something similar, sown maybe some wildflower seeds and they haven't put on the show for you, just keep at it, because you just never know when it's going to be your year. So coming along here, I have these 3 small kind of grassy plants. This is actually gayfeather, and I believe these primarily flower in the fall, but maybe in the summer as well. I'm not sure. This is my first year with them, and so I'm really excited to have them here, and I'll just kind of give you a shot of what everything looks like that way. So I want to talk about this great free resource from Texas A&M. This is their plant selector list, and it goes into some great native and well-adapted plants for the area. It talks about their size notes, it talks about sun and water needs, lets you know what ecoregion they're from, and has very helpful commentary on each plant. Now, this is a physical copy, and you can often find these in your local nurseries for a couple of bucks, but it exists in free format on the web, and I'll be sure to link that in the description box. Now, this is specific to the Central Texas area, and I've not found this for other parts of Texas, but there is an EarthKind database that you can actually put your zip code in and what it is you're looking for in terms of sun needs and such, and it'll give you a pretty decent list. I'll make sure that I also link that in the description box. I have done a brief video explaining that, and I'll make sure I link that in the description box as well. So I hope I've provided some inspiration for you to try some of these native and well-adapted plants. They really will help your garden thrive. Until the next one, y'all take care.